What's up, guys? Jake here with a quick message before we get on to our show. Please make sure that you like this video below, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and also make sure that you sign up for notifications. With your guys' help, we can ensure that all of the guests get the right attention and audience that they deserve. I thank all of you guys for joining me along this very adventurous journey, and now let's get on to the show. What is up, Vegas? Again, I am here with another born and raised Las Vegas local. It's a perfect treat. She has quite an interesting story, and she's the founder of LoFive Management, which has 6 artists under management, I believe.
Vaguely. Due to COVID, it's kind of hard since nobody's playing shows right now. So I'm like kind of managing people, kind of not. So yes.
Management's it's an interesting job.
There's nothing to manage.
Yeah,
right
that's what I'm saying. And also when you're managing people, it's like there's so many different things that could go wrong. And then you have to manage their profession. You're managing their lives. Like you're managing their mental well-being.
Totally. Yeah. So because of that, during COVID, I've kind of switched to being more of like a marketing consultant. And so I've been doing kind of like these one-off consultations for artists who are trying to be more professional in the industry and just have like no idea what they're doing, or maybe have like, some, kind of cool history going on or some cool tracks out, but then like don't have that next step. And back in the day, the music industry used to have someone like on the label that would help you, like develop your artist project. And I feel like that's like a lost art, a lost career. Like people don't really do that anymore. And so I'm like helping these people that like, yeah, my bedroom producers out there.
I was literally just about to say that. So you're helping them take the next step from being a SoundCloud bedroom producer to performing at events or building a brand around them.
Yeah, and then each consultation is obviously catered to each artist. So if there's, some artists who have some releases and they've, kind of done maybe like a mini tour or something like that, then theirs is going to look obviously super different than a kid in, Oklahoma that's like just playing out of his bedroom that like wants to play like Electric Forest or something. Like they have, completely different things. So
That's my favorite festival I've ever been to by far.
Mine too.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Electric Forest is like here. Like I've been to literally festivals in other countries, and like there's something about Electric Forest that is just like
it's the vibe up there. Everything's really different. What really caught me off guard was that it doesn't get dark until like 10:30 at night. Mm-hmm. So you're literally out there partying and you're like, it should be dark right now. It should be dark, and it's still daytime, and it like throws you off. And the cool part is like it's a 4-day festival in Michigan, for those who don't know. It's thrown by Insomniac, who does EDC. There's also a day 0, so it's technically 5 days if you're there.
Yeah.
And 95% of the people there are camping because the nearest hotel is like 2-hour drive. So you just have like 80,000 people in this forest just out partying, literally in the forest.
Yeah, and I was Black Gummies guest, shouts out, and they have the best like green rooms like out of any place I've ever been to in my life. Like they have the most helpful staff on planet Earth. Like nothing compares to Electric Forest staff. So woo.
Do you think, is that just pertinent to Electric Forest, or is that kind of emblematic of Insomniac?
Oh no, it is definitely an Electric Forest thing for sure. No, they're like, and it reminds me if anybody's ever visited like Oregon, and you go to if you're like a city person like me and you go to Oregon for the first time, and everyone's so friendly, you're kind of just like, what's going on? Like, who's fucking with me? But Electric Forest is like that, where you're like, you're helping me with something I need help on. Like, whoa, like, okay, cool. Like, you guys are getting stuff done. Like, nice. Like, they're very like problem solvers. It's so nice and refreshing.
The festival scene could be pretty chaotic. I've never seen the back end of it, but if it's anything like the nightclub industry that I've worked in 5 years, like I could definitely tell you what's happening in the front of house sometimes is not representative of what's happening in the back of the house.
Yeah, because you worked at Omnia, and that was like a new club too. So
brand new.
Having to work at a brand new club with like everybody else trying to like work, and you definitely.
Especially when you get and I'm not trying to like save face for the DJs or anything, but when you get some of these like higher caliber artists in there, like Calvin Harris and Zed and Tiesto and some of these people, their requirements around them vary differently. So you have to almost treat them differently.
Yes, due to their writers, there are writers out there. Need those green Skittles on my
Right.
yeah. But I mean, you know, you're an artist and, you know, you worked up towards that and you deserve green, you know, M&Ms, not green Skittles. That's so specific. You deserve green M&Ms or whatever the hell your writer says, you know, because you worked really hard towards that. And so sometimes people don't see that part of all the hard work. They just kind of see the Calvin Harris name in lights. So, yeah.
So you're from Vegas. You look young. You're a young, beautiful woman. I assume you're probably around the same age as me. So I'm assuming that's probably relatively young for the space.
Yeah, Mama V since 93.
Boom. Okay, right there.
Let me get it on a jacket.
Let's rewind this a little bit and go through your story, because I know it's probably an interesting one from what I've seen and from what I've heard to be in a woman of your position.
Yeah, I know it's funny. Like if you just like look at my social media, you're like, I actually don't really know what you do.
Exactly. Obviously you were a friend of one of the guests that had on the show, and so I took your word for it and his that you're somebody that I need to talk to hear your story, but also get some insight on the industry. And as I was going through your social media, you used to be a go-go dancer, you're a model, you're in the music industry. Like there's so many different things that you have your paws in.
Yes. So I became a go-go dancer model when I was like 18, 19. My mom had kicked me out, and so I started modeling and go-go dancing for anime and comic book conventions. And it was before Porter Robinson played at Anime Expo. So it was before it was cool and before there were e-girls and stuff. Like it was just like, hot glue guns and chaos. So that's actually where I got my start with like the go-go dancing modeling thing. And then when I turned 21, I was like, I have these years of experience. Like, let me go work at a Vegas club. And then found the underground scene and fell absolutely in love with it. I did like a paint party for like a base event or something, and I was like, this is chaos. And I was like a cat or something dressed up, and I was like, I love this life. And so started doing events in Vegas, and then got my first residency gig at 1923 Bourbon and Burlesque, which is Holly Madison's club at Mandalay Bay. And so and it was good back then. The money was great, and so like I could just be this kind of like wanderlust person who travels all the time, and then just work like a couple of convention modeling gigs, get paid $300 for the day, go dance at night, get paid $250 for the night. And like, dude, like that right there, you survive for the week. So I was just doing that for a while before I realized that people really needed me for their events, because I was bringing like, 20 to 50 people for a show. And it could be like a small rink-a-dink show, or it could be like a massive show. But like if I was like, this is a really cool party, then people would trust my word, because, I wasn't really getting paid to, promote.
Yeah, they just wanted to come support you.
Yeah, come support me, and then like whatever I do is always fun. So I always put 110%. Even back then, I was like I put 110% into everything. So then after some time, I realized that like people needed me more than I needed them, and so that's when I kind of got into throwing parties. And then even to go back a little bit further, when I was in high school, the first party that I ever threw was my Sweet Core 16. And it was a metal show where I used my Cold Stone Creamery money to pay for all the bands, the photographer, the decorations and stuff. And that was kind of like the spark to me, like throwing events. So years later, when I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm really good at this, and I'm naturally good at marketing and getting people places, whatever, like I should just be doing this in general. And around the same time, so this is probably like 2014 or so, I started working with the Dancernauts, which is a super popular...
Oh yeah, I've seen them live once before in the downtown area. I met a few of the people that were part of that.
Yeah, shouts out to Dancernauts. When I met them when I was in 2014... oh God, 6 years ago. Yeah, so I was 21. So yeah, I met them and started performing for them. They took me to like all these festivals and out of state ones, out of country ones. And that's where I really got the confidence to be like, okay, like I actually really know what I'm doing. I'm performing in all these cool places and stuff. And so started helping like the go-go dancers and models model and go-go dance. I used to teach free go-go dancing and modeling classes. And if you came to one of my classes, then I would book you for a gig, because I could trust that you would show up on time, you were nice or whatever. And so it's kind of my way of like helping people kind of do what I wanted them to do, and then also being able to always have fresh faces to like book and stuff. So I have this like kind of whole scheme thing going on over here.
You're like a music industry entrepreneur of sorts. You had a few different systems in play that kind of self-feeded themselves.
Yeah, because you need girls at parties. So
straight up.
That's always was definitely like, how many go-go's can you bring? Got so many text messages like that. And so, and then I kind of started bringing it to my DJ friends because they were like, oh my gosh, like you guys are having so much fun, getting paid and on time. Like when you work with me, you always get paid on time, which was super big in the Vegas scene. And so I started helping my DJ friends. And then once that happened, then I was like, well, I should just be booking these parties myself. Like, why do I need these like third party people to help me? And so then because I'm kind of like a freelance person, I could help out whomever I wanted. And it be, you know, it's okay. I don't answer to anybody. So
you're your own boss.
Yeah, I'm my own boss. And then I help people become their own boss too, because people forget that like when you're the artist, you're still a boss. Like even if you got commissioned or paid by somebody else, like you are still your own boss, you know, and people kind of lose that in themselves when they're like, but the art, like they're paying for it. It's like, no, you have the art. So that's your little golden egg, you know, don't lose that. So.
Yeah. I like the route that you're taking, which we talked about right before you came on here, about how you didn't want to be too overzealous with your own personal brand of LoFive Management, and you want to kind of give the branding opportunities to all the artists that you help with, and kind of let their special individual image kind of flourish within their own brands.
Yeah. I like at one time, like I've, you know, managed like 9 different accounts, you know, or people and things like that, whatever. And so I think with LoFive Management, like I just want it to be, if you need my help, I've got an email, I got a website, you know, whatever, like that's it. But it's more going to be focused because I've been branding myself for 8 years now, so I don't want to brand myself anymore. I don't really want to brand my brand, you know, like it is what it is. It's super simple. It's an artist's help. If you need my help, there it is.
Brand inception.
Brand inception.
So what kind of gravitated you towards the underground scene? Obviously, you were go-going at 18 up until 21. I'm assuming that's probably more of the mainstream pop culture because you're around the same age as me. And when EDM started becoming popular, it was more like that big room house kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then it started translating out into like the underground.
Yeah, so 18 to 21 was like anime, comic book conventions and stuff. So I traveled for that. And then EDM, I was just like, oh, there's just like more money. Or actually, there is just money in general because there was no money in the anime. There probably still isn't in the anime and comic book convention, go-go dancing, performing arts thing. So yeah, I went to EDM so I could probably just dance bigger stages was probably my first thought. That's definitely sounds like something I would younger V would say. I'd be like, I just want to dance for more people. And cooler artists and stuff. And I've gotten to dance for a ton of artists I super respect and love their music. And I still go dance for Terrace After Hours out here in Vegas because it's a really great way to force all my friends to come see me perform.
And those go till literally the sun comes up, too.
Yeah, they do. So my friends can come at any time, no matter what time they get off. And so I love Terrace to death because they get just the best artists and yeah, it was super cool.
So it was originally you transitioned over to EDM because you wanted to let your go-go skills shine to a better stage, and then you were probably consumed a little bit by the culture, as most of us do end up happening.
Consumed. Yeah, definitely consumed by the culture. And then like throwing the party aspect of it was when I really like kind of like flipped the switch and was just like, oh my gosh, like I just want to like throw these parties instead because I was a yearbook kid my whole life, and so in yearbook, I even went to yearbook camp one year in high school. And with yearbook, you always have a theme that you have to do and present, and it has to be cohesive, and you have to be able to argue it. And I feel like when I work for some of these events, they'll just be like, I just need this thing that makes no sense and is $10,000 because it looks cool. And you're like, well, that's not in theme. And I don't know how that helps the vibe of the party and is not cohesive at all. And so just dealing with a bunch of people who have like outlandish requests all the time also caused me to be like, okay, like I should help these DJs and artists and go-go's and stuff like that, like with their events by throwing the parties for them so that like they can have cohesive events going on while everybody else kind of does their chaotic whatever they're doing.
What was the first event that you threw?
That was not an anime in GoGo event. I'm not sure because I've helped in so many, like, and I've not been billed for a bunch of them. So I feel like I've definitely had my pause in just so many different aspects. I tell people I've worked for every underground entertainment group in Vegas at least once in some capacity, either as an artist, go-go, stagehand, manager, decorator, costumer.
A true freelancer of all of your skills.
Yeah, if I could be the bodyguard of my own party, I would. If I could just be like at the front, it's like like one of those big suits or whatever, like I would, but I can't. So that's the only job I cannot do. But yeah, bartending a million times, God, front guest list, all those things.
Where do you see the industry going now? Obviously with COVID, that's kind of just ravaged everything, events and industry, and Vegas was hit the hardest at one point. Where do you see the future of events transitioning towards?
Oh goodness. Okay. So, one reason why I really like that I started doing marketing consultations for people is because I want to instill confidence into artists, because I think the industry is going to be very, very ugly in this upcoming year. And like a lot of people are like, I'm not even going to go back to the industry until things are like crazy more stable, because it's just going to be like this like shark eating frenzy.
Because there's a limited spot. There's going to be a limited spot.
It's limited. And then like the people who are like, that are already kind of in this like balance of place, whatever, are also like here. It's just like, it's going to be so stressful that's why I think it's really, 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 really important to really hone in on your project and your art, whatever, and then be very realistic with what you want. Because if you're just like, younger V, and you're just like, I just want to play for a big stage, that's your only goal. Okay, so there's your goal. Or you're like, you know what? Like, I'm really good at what I do, and I want to make money off of it. Okay, then here's your goal. But a lot of times, like, when I talk to artists, they don't even have that part down. And so... which is fine, the artists think about art, so, and marketing people think about marketing and branding and, and helping and guiding you to success. So, I think it's just going to get super freaking ugly. And I'm not sure how involved I'll be with events and things like that. I moved to Northern Nevada recently, and so they throw really cool events. They're very kind of like smaller, but like they're all about like stage design and production and stuff, because they have like Burning Man up there. So they look cool, and there's a lot of fire.
That culture is kind of made its way over to Reno.
Yeah, Reno and Tahoe. And so so throwing like smaller events that are more controllable, I think will be great and stuff. But like the bigger events, I'm genuinely like just absolutely terrified. Like I don't want to touch those with like a 10-foot stick.
That message, I think, has a lot of valid points to it, because with COVID restrictions in place, you're limited to 250 or 50 or whatever the case is. So all these events.
Yeah, for now. And then what about the next day? Like, what if you've sold like 200 tickets and then they're like, oh, just kidding, you can only do 100. Like, how do you pick the 100 people to go? Or do you just cancel the event? Or like, what do you do? Like, and it's already so hard enough to do shows in general. It's such a money dump. It's a lot. So to deal with these COVID restrictions, I don't know.
It's a pain, yeah. And so when you're throwing these small events, you're going to have a very niched kind of crowd. So I think it would be important to specialize whatever craft you're doing as far as being an artist, because you're going to have to kind of cater to these. Like, just use like Dirty Bird, for example. They started off as like a very niche kind of crowd. Now they've grown, obviously, but they still put a limit on like how many people that can attend their events, because they know what happens when you start scaling outwards. It kind of loses the integrity of the culture.
Yeah, which is crazy that I feel like Electric Forest is so successful, because it's such a large scale event, and it still feels like, in a Dirty Bird sense, whatever, like it still feels like Electric Forest no matter where you are. So
I think that also has to do with a little bit of just being up north in Michigan. It's a very, hippie kind of crowd.
Yeah, it's an all ages event. So that's awesome. I think it's cool.
I know you manage 5 or 6 different artists. Do you like representing artists who are just beginning? It's almost like a startup rather than managing somebody who, let's say, is in the middle part or the peak of their career.
Yeah, well, you'll find out about me. I don't like arguing. I think it was like Keanu Reeves who was like, I don't argue with people anymore. If you think, 2 + 2 = 6, you're right, or whatever his quote is. And I feel the exact same way. And so I feel like when I do work with artists who have more of a resume, it is harder for them to try new things. First off, it is very hard for them to try new things. And if they are and they don't see results immediately, then they get mad at you. And so there's like a lot of blocks that I have to like push through more. And with newer artists, it's obviously just easier just be like, hey, trust in the process, just do these things. Because I give like to-do lists for people, which I think is really like nice. It's like, here's what you should be doing very clearly. And then I think that maybe you should do these if you have the extra time or if you have the extra money or if you get to this point. And so there's like different avenues, that you can go through, whatever. And it's kind of like, I feel like easier versus like, bigger artists that are kind of stuck in their ways a little bit.
So the beginning,
in my experience,
I'm just gonna call them a startup artist because I always represent like startup culture on this podcast. Yeah, they're vulnerable because they're just starting. They don't really have a sense of direction as where to go. Whereas like these middle or peak performers, you mentioned that they kind of set up these barriers that you kind of have to punch through. Do you think those barriers are representative of their egos?
Probably. It sounds like an ego problem to me for sure.
Is that the majority of the time?
Yeah, and then it's like, obviously, if you don't know me personally or have talked to me one-on-one like this, which a lot of people haven't, you just see like my super cute like brand ambassador like Instagram page, and you're like, who's this backstage guest list girl who thinks she knows what she's talking about? And it's just like, oh my God. And then like, which also reminds me of working in the anime and comic book convention scene, because I had to prove to people that I was a nerd all the time. And like, no, like I grew up watching anime and I grew up collecting comics and all these things. Like, so it's kind of like two sides of but just different things. So
there could be big egos. And speaking of big egos, those are generally attached to men. As being a younger woman in the industry, was there any sort of gender gap or barrier upon entry?
Oh, yeah. I've had I had one of my stage managers ask me if I knew how to make an Excel spreadsheet, which is so offensive. And then I had someone else tell me that for just a go-go dancing, they're like, you shouldn't be a go-go dancer. Go-go dancers are sluts. And I was like, DJs are sluts. So I was like, it doesn't matter. Slut is an arbitrary concept anyway. So like, and I was like, why would you even tell that to me? So like little things like that are just like typically men just being just when they just could just be quiet. Like they didn't add anything to my life or, that didn't, Yeah,
I could see that. For somebody I've worked on the strip the last 10 years, and I've always said that the strip is dominated. I think women have the power on the strip because you're in positions of power where you're making the money and you kind of get to dictate where things are. But I think it's hard sometimes for men. I don't know what the reason is, to see like those women of power try to transition into their industry where they've been kind of in power and kind of like they don't like to relinquish it. Yeah,
because it's like kind of like unfair. Like you get to have it all. You get to be sexy online with a bunch of followers and do all these cool things. Whatever. It's not fair. So it's how I think it goes. But I don't know. What do I know?
Are there any successful women like managers in the scene?
Ganita. I think she's more of a booking agent, but I do think she does manage a couple of artists. And Ganita. She does a lot of cool like house parties, like pretty much any house festival ever, like she has her hand in, but like worldwide. And so she's definitely somebody that I look up to.
What's the difference between a booking agent and a manager?
I'm glad you asked, because I talk about this a lot in my consultations. And so booking agents, they just get you the show and then they take 20%. So it's kind of more of like a more business person, like people
transactional.
It's very transactional. So a lot of my friends that want to be managers, I'm like, no, dude. I was like, I managed Speaker Honey, shouts out, for a while and for a couple years. And I put all of my bottle service money into her project. Like, so that we could go to Miami Music Week and we could go to Amsterdam for ADE and we could do all these things and shows and Desert Hearts and all these things and be like comfortably financially have like a little cushion, whatever, so we could travel to all these parties that we needed to go to. So if you can't take that commitment, then I don't know if you should be managing people, because that's like a huge part of it. It's an investment versus booking agents where they just take their 20%, dip out, and they still go to all the cool parties and they still know everybody cool and everybody wants to be their best friend because, that's the person who's getting you their shows. And so as an artist, if you're a DJ who's like, I just want to play like really big shows, like if that's your goal, then get a booking agent. You don't need a manager to manage your shows for you unless you don't know how to book a flight. So if that's you, then please get a manager because you will. I have had friends like miss shows because they're like, I actually need a manager, which is so upsetting to me. But if that's you, that's you. It's not everyone's very.
So managers are more hands-on. You're in the trenches with them.
Yeah,
traveling with them,
life
assisting
coach,
them. Yeah, with
managing.
life decisions.
Yeah. Should I go to this label? Should I stay here? Should I keep this song? Whatever. Like those questions. You should have like a manager or best friend for sure.
When you're helping your clients book shows, is there a different rating system in terms of gigs, whether they're like a corporate gig or they're a festival gig or a club gig?
So for booking shows, unless like I'm in charge of the booking or party or whatever, then like I'll, pick people that I think obviously suit the gig, but I'm not really a booking agent for people in general. If I see something and I think that you would be good on the lineup, I'll send it to you. Like, I don't care, if I get whatever back, which is obviously people who watch this right now are like, oh, no, but I mean, it's not because I feel like all the help that I've given to people has come back full circle to me tenfold. And
in what sense?
In sense that like if I need help for shows or if I need if I'm helping another client and then I need to like pair people together, they're more like open to working with me because I've just helped people out so much in general. Revisit that question.
I was asking if there was a different rating system for the different gigs for the DJs. Like, do you value anything higher, or is it just like any exposure is good exposure and just go with that?
I think about travel a lot. So if I have an artist that had to travel, like I will like cut them more for the travel if their travel isn't covered in their contract. But literally everything it's all specific to the show. It's all specific to the event. It's all specific to the budget. So it's a very loaded, long question.
Do you assist with the contracts for the show too?
Usually not, unless there's something like really fucked up in it, and then I'm like, I'll definitely read over it before I just like give someone something, because, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I feel like people should do that. People don't do that, but they should. Before you're just giving contracts.
Always read the language for anything, not even just in the festival sense or music industry, even like your rent agreement or anything like that.
Yeah, and I grew up with like a single mom, so she's so used to getting fucked over in contracts that I learned from a young age to read. And then my dad works for like one of the largest unions in the Pacific Northwest, and so he handles people's contracts as well. And so the people that I work for Vela FUR, they just graduated law school. And so if there's anything I need help on, I ask them. Or I have this like kind of mentor, Rain Robinson. He used to manage Han Solo. And if I don't understand something, like I'll ask him too. So I definitely have like a lot of people that I kind of like go to if like I'm really stuck on something, or if I feel like it's a trick, which it is probably, if it's one of those trick statement things, then I'll definitely bring it to somebody. Yeah, because I'm not a music lawyer, and I don't plan to be, but I definitely plan on being able to understand it at least.
At least a basic ground. Sounds like you set up a pretty good friend and mentor system around you, and that you're not afraid to ask questions if need be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because then I learn something new, which is always valuable. But I've always valued just like surrounding yourself by people smarter than you. Our friend that recommended me to be on this show, when I became friends with him, I was like, wow, what a smart, intelligent guy who's, making his own way in life. And I really admire people like that. So I've definitely, with the Dastronauts, they all own their own large scale businesses, and so just kind of being a sponge and soaking in all that knowledge has definitely helped me to be where I am today, for sure.
It's important. You have to have the founder mindset, and that's why I enjoy talking with founders so much, is because we all have like this similar long-term goal of success, but the avenues that everyone takes and the ideologies are differing, like so hard. But it's like, some of the common similarities is that we put ourselves in so many different situations that eventually we create something that's so like unique and special to us, and then that becomes representative to who you are, and people see that value, and that's why they end up approaching you, because you're such a unique person.
Yeah, unique. And then if you need something done like from, you know, beginning to end, I can pretty much, if I can't do it, then I know somebody who can, and build, you know, a complete castle of shows, I guess.
What was that company you just mentioned earlier? Vela FUR?
Yes, Vela FUR. They are a festival fashion clothing brand, and they sell faux fur coats. And they actually sold out at EDC last year, and because it was so freezing cold, if you guys remember, it was so cold.
Freezing. It was like 50 degrees.
Yeah, people were trying to like take down the walls, I guess. But I was performing at Elrow, so I wasn't there. I was inside and cozy.
What do you do for them?
Oh my gosh. So for Elrow, dude, I am one of the character performers, and so we get like a theme, and so we perform to that theme, and everyone is just a kooky, crazy, because they want to bring people back to their like childlike state with parties. And so like for one party, we had like a old McDonald kind of theme, so everybody was like farm animals, but they were like fat, or they had like pimples or something, or I don't know,
so
whatever.
cool.
And then I was like an egg for one, and so I would just like run around with my other egg, and then we would talk about how we were getting fried and just like flip over and then just like run away, and then like, yeah, it was just absolute chaos. And so
Are those events they were doing at Encore Beach Club last year?
Yes.
Okay, I did go to a few of those actually.
I was I feel like I've only been recognized like a handful of times, because the makeup is just so crazy, out of this world, like big long noses or crazy hats or stilt walkers and stuff. It's bananas. And I missed the one in Amsterdam, but my friends went to it, and I think it was like themed after like Chinese New Year or something like that. So they had like, it was like a packed warehouse, and they just had like the dragons running through the crowd of people, and just like circus people and just like small people, and just like everything. It was just their parties are like, I think they spend like $1 million on like their party stuff, like a year, or on a party or something like that. It's bananas.
How many different countries have you been to for the festival scene?
Oh goodness. So I was a performer on Groove Cruise, and so Groove Cruise.
That was also one of my favorite events I've been to.
You've been to Groove Cruise?
Yeah, 2015 LA.
We got a Groove Cruiser.
All day, part of the family.
Yeah, Jason. Woo. Yeah. So I've been to 5 Groove Cruises. And Groove Cruise with the Dance-Ronauts, and Groove Cruise is awesome because that really tests you. Okay, so for the Dance-Ronauts, like we have like our cabins, so it's like, you know, one captain and then like maybe 3 or 4 girls, whatever, and they're like in charge of each other, and then they like also kind of do the themes like with each other, and there's 2 themes a day, and then we also have our performance. So that's like 12 to 13 costumes that we bring onto this boat. So, so we perform on this festival boat, whatever, and I obviously, like, make all my own costumes, so being just, like, the craziest person, you know, on the boat is just my goal. And so I went to 5 of those, like, I think 2 West Coast, or maybe 2 or 3 West Coast, and then the other, they're on the East Coast, which goes to, like, the Bahamas or whatever.
Groove Cruise is cool because it's like a combination of like college spring break and festivals, whereas like if you're tired of going to all the stages, you can literally just walk down where all the rooms are, and people have their doors open and they curate their own
very
hotel
splash
rooms.
house.
Yeah.
And it's cool because there's a 24-hour buffet, which is always my favorite part. Is like, you know what? I just want a single bite of ice cream. I'm gonna go get that. Like, this is what would satisfy me right now. So I did that, and then I went to Amsterdam for Amsterdam dance events, but they turned the entire city into like events and stuff like that. So like anywhere you turn is just another event going on. So we didn't do like the actual festival part, and I didn't do any of the conferences, which I don't regret, because it was my first time going. So I think the first time you go, you just need to inhale everything. You know, you just got to like soak in everything and just figure it out, because it's another country.
Yeah, and that's one of like the prominent electric music festivals down in like the whole European area.
Yeah, if you're serious about music, you need to go to Audi for sure. It is definitely like top tier. The sound systems, it could be like the tiniest little shack, and it'll have a better sound system than like half the places on the strip. It's insane. So yeah, I went to that, and then it wasn't a festival, but I did go to a couple of shows in Korea. I lived there for 4 months last year, and so I can't remember anybody that I saw, but it wasn't like anybody crazy. But I went to a couple shows out there, And that's cool because like people party super hard in South Korea, because if you don't get on the train by a certain time, there's a subway home, like then you have to pay for a cab, and people don't want to pay for a cab. And so everyone just parties until the 6 a.m. thing. So people party like crazy out there. It's so fun to just like be at that like 2 a.m. and just like see everyone looking around and everyone just like drinking like it's the end of the world. Just like, okay.
I love it. Koreans party super hard, even when they would come into Omnia and get tables. It's insane the amount of money they spend, and it's usually like generally champagne, but it's just like the characteristic of the group. They're very like animated and friendly, and like that's
so fun, so super fun. Yeah, definitely recommend Korea.
Do you notice is there any striking differences between the different cultures across the different countries in terms of like the festival scenes, or like the way that artists have to approach it?
I definitely do feel like people in other countries are kind of like when you meet them and like people know that I'm working, I feel like people in other countries are just more down to earth and very humble and things like that. And then in America, there's like this, like you have to prove yourself, or you have to prove who you know, almost like very like LA mentality. Sometimes that is completely unnecessary. I feel like, I guess that's the only like major difference. Oh, and then I feel like in other countries, like people are more problem solvers. Like in Electric Forest, when I was so surprised that like if there's an issue, like people try to resolve it like kind of immediately, instead of like bickering amongst each other. I feel like that's a very American quality to have, is well, I think I'm right. Well, I think I'm right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, it doesn't matter. Just fix it.
And we like to call those a dick measuring contest.
Dick measuring contest.
So it sounds like kind of the remnants of the plur culture kind of is still represented in the European countries, at least in the culture wise.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like people are, as we've seen from COVID, I feel like people are so grateful for things, like I feel like in other countries, and then here we've gotten so spoiled with all of our really nice, cool parties and being able to just like
VIP table service everywhere.
VIP table service, guest lists, everything. And so I wonder how things will change after COVID, if it'll make it like better or worse, or I don't know.
I have this weird, I actually tweeted this right when the pandemic started, and I started seeing all of these virtual festivals like Insomniac was doing, and a bunch of these.
Yeah.
I feel like down the road in one of these festivals, they're going to have the DJ playing, but he's going to be live streaming to the crowds. Like that's a trend that I see happening. Like it's just like glaring to me, because then you could cut down on the price.
Yeah.
DJs can attend a Coachella from their room and stream to these crowds, and they also get exposure to all these different crowds.
Yeah, I definitely think that like festival culture should be accessible for everybody. Like, just because, you live, in the middle of nowhere in this tiny little town, whatever, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to access these crazy types of genres and musics that, like, everybody gets to, which, I mean, we're pretty good about it because of, the internet. But, like, I feel like VR culture is definitely, like, kicked off now. Like, there's definitely a race to be, like, the first, like, kick-ass VR DJ. Like,
that's, like, the next social media trend.
It's yeah, I have a couple friends, like, working in, like, some stuff, like, they're trying to make that, like, happen. And then they also want to make it so that like if you're DJing, then like you can set up your equipment and then it'll like feed through, and so like you can be the VR DJ, whatever, and they don't have to like necessarily come to your house and like set it up for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's gonna be like a whole new wave. So everyone's gonna have like VR sets and stuff. I don't know how I was gonna touch on this when you said like when everybody announced the online festivals. It sucks that we're charging people from the beginning though, because like now the DJs are for sure not making money, because a lot of those festivals are for exposure. And even if they have to like go perform at a venue space, even if there's nobody in there, a lot of those people are like playing for free. And so I feel like like from the beginning, it should have been like a paid thing, so that there's at least some, like, instead of just only depending on like the tips,
Right now the precedent is set that they can't charge for
yeah,
for
because they're like, oh, I'll just like go to the next or whatever, you know. Just
and I know a lot of artists too. I see this. I actually forget who I had on. We were talking about this as well. Is like Spotify doesn't pay shit for streams.
0.0083 cents or something.
So a lot of these artists, you have to get creative in a way to get paid. Whether it's for podcasters, they kind of go to the Patreon model,
Totally,
or they like leverage a different business on top of it. Artists, I know, like the go-to thing is merchandise.
Yeah.
But there's probably other ways you could do as well, like master classes. I know DeadMau5 does that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a supporter of like teaching to, you know, other people what you know. So if anybody wants to learn about marketing, no, just kidding. But I'm not really a crazy big advocate for merchandise because I'm super like anti China made or, you know, foreign made products and things like that. So if they're like homemade or something like that, then I, you know, go for it. But if you're just like buying massive amount of, you know, t-shirts from China and then like printing them yourself, you know, like we got to do better. And I feel like there are other avenues that we can do. Even like, you know, coffee mugs. People need coffee mugs and DJ name coffee mug.
DJ coffee. There's a black coffee already. So.
I know, there's black coffee. There you go. Black coffee mugs. You can take that one.
Boom.
That's all you.
Do you think
I'll take 5% of that?
Just 3% now?
Yeah. We'll split it.
Hey, I like that. That's like a fees fee, an agent's fee,
Yeah,
finder's fee.
Finder's fee, yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude, if I had a finder's fee, but I'm not there yet. One day.
We'll create a finder's fee app. And
there you go.
Yeah,
we know a guy.
Hey, I like that. If you're listening, do you think, in terms of a beginning artist, we're going back to the startup artist, sure. Is it important to focus on your brand and your music, or do you think there's some sort of positive attributes to trying to monetize off of your brand in the beginning in terms of like a merchandise or a black coffee mug or something like that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to capitalize on that if you haven't done anything, if you're a beginning artist, because actually I just had this conversation literally 2 days ago with someone I'm consulting, and he's all like, do you think that that's like weird for me? And I was like, well, why don't you just like focus on your music first, okay? Like really, because when I consult people, I don't know how to nicely say this, but I don't really care about your music because I think that you need to care about your music. I'm not going to give you advice on your music unless you want it from like a GoGo Dancer perspective, whatever, but that's not part of my consultation at all. And a lot of people like whatever mix that up. But so as long as your music's, you know, really, really on point, whatever. And then if you want to, branding sometimes doesn't happen right away. You know, it takes
years.
Yeah, it took me a year to find LoFive management, and I adore the shit out of it. But it definitely took me like a year of kind of being like on the lookout for a kind of name. So if you're not even there where you don't even have that part yet, then like you don't have to really focus on that too much. But if you're trying to do merch, then I feel like that needs to be a key component because it's like that's branding, and then you have to have that done. And then for teaching or for other avenues of like, you know, doing podcasts or masterclass, whatever those sort of things are, then your branding doesn't have to necessarily be there if your talent in music is there. So. Yeah,
are you familiar with what a masterclass is?
Yeah, totally. Okay. I want to do one. But I'm not going to do one on masterclass because they take too much money out.
Go create your own. You'll make way more money.
Yeah, don't create masterclasses. We don't need a middleman. You just got to get rid of the middleman.
Hey, that's why I'm a big Bitcoin advocate. I'm just cutting the middleman out of everything.
Yeah, instead of big banks and stuff that are just
and they're doing that.
Politicians.
There's a lot of artists that are actually pro supporters of a cryptocurrency called Ethereum, which is like smart contracts, because it brings more money back to the artist for it. So there's actually a huge and thriving artist and music industry advocates in there. I know Blau is like a big advocate of Ethereum because of the potential to bring back the deserved money to the artists. Yeah,
and then if you don't understand that, then maybe take like not specifically a masterclass, but maybe a masterclass on Bitcoin.
There's a few avenues I want to do for that as well with podcasting. But going back to like building your project first, that's a question that people always ask me is, oh, have you started making money off the podcast yet? When are you monetizing? And I'm like, that's not even the goal.
Yeah,
that's not even
if that was the goal, I definitely wouldn't have done any of this the way my life would have been completely different, because I would have just become like a marquee go-go dancer and then done bottle service at like a club, and then just stayed there. And no, I would have definitely been a way different person if it was about the money for me.
And I like that you said that you've been, I think you said this before we were actually recording, that you've been branding pretty much for 8 years.
Yeah.
And the thing with like the longer you hold off on monetizing your brand, the more exponential the payout is later down the road. Whether like for you, you've been branding and you're eventually going to get a lot of artists under you, and then that kind of becomes repetitive pay over time. So there's many different ways, but I use this example for podcasting a lot. Like if you're a beginning podcaster and you start throwing ads like right when you start, you're only making pennies on the dollar, and you're going to turn away 50 people from that, or 50% of your user base can be like, yo, fuck this guy. Like, who does he think he is? Yeah. Whereas if you keep holding off later down the road, and now instead of having 50 followers, you have 5,000, and you say like, here, I've been giving you guys free information for 2 years, buy my shirt. And now you have 5,000 people who are going to buy a $20 shirt because you've been providing, 50. Versus your 50.
I definitely love that.
It's probably similar with the music industry as well. And that's where you see a lot of success stories, but it's hard because when you're a startup of whatever you're doing, you look to see who's the best, and you're like, I want to be Joe Rogan. I want to be Calvin Harris. I want to be Deadmau5. But you don't realize like the amount of work that they've put in over time. Over
a long time. The music industry is definitely a long-term thing. So I agree with that. And then also with that, so you said with like doing advertisements for your podcast. So, and then maybe you could figure out like how to maybe hide the advertisements where it's like just on your website, so that like, maybe you still have those advertisements. So maybe you are still making a couple bucks, but at least it's like hidden away like on your website, and not like, like Fox on like the
you don't want to come off as a used car salesman.
No,
that's that's the worst reputation you could get, right? Like anytime you want to go buy a car, you're just like, you already have it predetermined that you're going to stage a walkout to pretend to get the price lower, and like the used car salesman is already aware you're going to do this too. So it's like this like fake bartering system going on. And if people portray you in that kind of light, whereas you just start nickel and trying to dime them in the beginning, then you are that used car salesman, and they're not going to treat you like the person that you want to be.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like, not to toot my own horn, but when I do my consultations, like when I talk to people, I'm genuinely excited about people's artist projects because it's what you've been working on, and it's going to be completely new. I'm not, I've never heard about it before. I don't know where you are. A lot of my consultations come from like Germany and Toronto and like the East Coast, and so they're people I would have not never worked with, but definitely like not soon, and so I'm like getting to meet all these people for the first time, and I love meeting people and I love people's art. So
do they just reach out to you through social media, or are they referrals?
Yeah, so I started doing this at the beginning of COVID because I was like, I can't really manage artists if we're not really doing anything, so we're gonna put a nice little hold on that. And so the consultations, like, it was kind of like word of mouth, word of text or whatever to like other people. And then once the first few months kind of went by and I had like enough people to where I could like see the majority of the problems that each were, that most of them were having, whatever, then I could be like, okay, cool. Then I can cater this to this or do this to this and stuff. And so now I'm like, I've done so many that like I'm so confident in them now. But at the beginning I was kind of like, okay, like, should I even be doing this? And it's like, I don't know, like I'm charging people for my opinion. And then after a few I was like, actually no, people need my opinion like really badly. Like this is actually really bad. Like everybody needs a lot of help right now, especially now because next year, oh my gosh, like so many people need so much help, and next year it's going to be so crazy and not as great. And so I'm so happy that I get to help so many people with just a lot of it's like really basic stuff. And then it's cool to kind of like figure out what their specific art project of like, I want to do like, drum covers online, or, whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. So here's like your little like YouTube package. So you do that.
So what is, diving a little bit deeper into it, what is your evaluation process? Is there any sort of thing that you're specifically looking at when artists approach you in terms of their branding and marketing?
So Obviously I kind of lurk them from the get-go. Before our call, I kind of lurk, scavenge the internet like a little bit. And then when I do the consultation, I'll go through and write my thoughts on each of it. So I'll go to your Facebook, I'll write everything about your Facebook. I'll go to your Twitter, write everything about your Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's just like marketing in general. And then I'll ask them, okay, so what have you been doing? And then they'll be like, oh, I played a couple shows. They were for free for drink tickets, but I started producing music. I'm really good at it. And I want to play at Dirty Bird one day. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We got a goal. Okay, cool. So how do we play at Dirty Bird? And then that's like kind of one thing. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Do we have any other goals? And then that you want to do? And then that way it helps my brain figure out where you want to go, because I've clearly been to all these parties anyways. So I'm like,
it's like some checkpoints.
Yeah. Checkpoints in chess.
Goals are so important, and sometimes I even get caught off track and don't have any goals. And I had somebody the other day, and I had them on here, and she was also a fellow podcaster, and she'd mentioned who her dream guest was, and it was Dana White. And then she'd asked me, and I was like, oh, I don't even know. I was like, I don't even have a goal. Like, wow. Like, it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, I don't know. So it is important, because sometimes we'll achieve those like short-term goals that we had, and then we just don't set anything else after that. And then you're kind of just like lurking. Like you don't really know your direction. So I had to like go back and like kind of fine tune where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Also, like, equipment is a really good goal too. If you're like, I want to play this specific type of synth or whatever, then that could be a goal. Or, things like that of like, or just like a physical goal, like I want to be able to do all my marketing before noon and then go on a run or something like that. Like, those, I think goals are important too, because I'm the type of person where I do live kind of like by a scheduled kind of lifestyle now, because I've lived so chaotically for the past probably since I was born. Like, I've just been in a constant stream of chaos my whole life. And so this is the first time in my life that like I wake up and I do this and I do this and then I do this. And by this time I have this and then this. And then that sounds kind of insane, but to me, who's lived in insanity, it's actually the most sane thing I've ever done for myself. And I'm really good at it. And I really like helping people also kind of create schedules, because I do make, they're called my action plans of action. And I started doing this when I was homeless, and because it was like something I could control. And if you have a to-do list, no matter how small it is, you feel better about yourself, even if it's like, I woke up today and I brushed my teeth. It doesn't matter the goal, it matters that you achieved it and stuff. And sometimes even those like small things are really hard for people, especially during a time period where like mental health is like at an all-time low. And so I do these action plans of action, and then if I'll make a new one and I'll add the old ones to the old ones, and I'll just keep them going. And so my house is just like filled with these like cute little to-do lists that I keep reminding myself. I'm like, oh, I did do that. And and then being able to throw away a whole one is just like so satisfying for me.
So relieving. It's just like if you look behind you on my calendar, I have like every day kind of X'd off.
Oh, wow.
And when the
That's
day
a
when
good
when,
one.
when the day's over and I exit off, I'm like, it's like a sigh of relief. So everyone needs to have something
Am I
like
on
that.
there? I can't read.
Yeah, your name is on there. Yeah,
Oh,
all
sick.
the like black circles are all different people that I have to interview that day. But I like having a traditional whiteboard rather than like a Google Calendar, because it's the first thing I see when I wake up, so I could kind of visualize what's happening with the day.
Yeah, I'm definitely a very I need to write things down type of person, and then like I'll add them if I really need to online. But I actually, for the consultations, I actually do a lot of it like by handwriting it first, and then that way I kind of help memorize it to myself and to the consultation. Because even though I might finish the consultation, say on Tuesday, I might not do it till Saturday, and a lot of shit can happen between those days.
I think specifically 2020 we've learned that.
Yeah, I've definitely come to like there's one consultation in particular where it was like early in the morning, and like I finished it like on the Sunday, and then I think I was doing it like on Thursday, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, what did I write down? I was like, no. But it went well. It went well, so.
I want to backtrack this a few minutes. You'd mentioned that you were homeless, and that kind of stuck out to me, because I've actually had a handful of people on here that were homeless at one point in their life and ended up becoming successful. So can you expand a little bit on that experience?
I was 18 and I had a job at Chapel Hats in the Venetian, and my mom was kicking me out. And so I like told my manager at the hat store about it, and then she told me that I was mentally unstable, and she fired me from my job.
Because of that?
Yeah. And so I'm like sitting in the Venetian staircase crying, and this janitor lady finds me, and she's just like this old black lady who's consoling me and really sweet. And so she's like, don't let these people, get you down and stuff. And so, so I had another friend, a coworker, ex-coworker, he let me stay at his house, but it was like a 1-bedroom apartment, so I like had this like little circle bed I could kind of sleep on, but he had like a wife, and so like could kind of keep my stuff there. I kept my stuff at like everybody's houses, so shouts out to everyone who let me keep my
you're
boxes.
A nomad. You're a nomad in it for a little while.
And then I got into the party scene, obviously, 'cause I'm fucking homeless, and that's what you do. But I was homeless, and the crazy thing, I could still work in Vegas because I had all these cute clothes. So I would like go to clubs and like walk girls in and stuff like that. And then I would eat the free dinners before you'd get into the nightclubs. And so
utilizing what you have. I love it.
Yeah. I would just go there, and then someone would always give me like a ride to wherever because we were leaving the club. And so like nobody really knew like how extreme my homelessness was like at all. Like I was just floating for 9 months. I was like that. I didn't have a phone. I had an iPod. One of those iPod things that I could connect to the internet sometimes, and I would like, I would post on Instagram or whatever on that thing. But yeah, I was like that for 9 months, and then moved in with a best friend, and then had this crazy sick party house, which is where a lot of people knew me from because I'd been floating at all these other parties, and then I had my own party house, and it was soundproof. So as long as you were inside the house, you could have like 100 people in there.
Oh, that is perfect. That is a dream. I wish we had that for our fraternity house in college.
Yeah, because in Vegas, the houses are so close to each other that like it was soundproof. So I started throwing parties there, and and then we had a DJ that moved in. So, we just have constant parties going on all the time. So that's how actually pretty much everyone knew me in Vegas too, is because like my homeless journey, and then like I had this party house, and then I became this like popular GoGo dancer. So they're like, oh, V, like let's go support her and stuff like that. So, but I don't really tell that to a lot of people because it just really doesn't come up, like.
It's important to look back though and see like the trials and tribulations that we've gone through, and to show that through this entire conversation, if I had to, put a word that describes you, I would say it's resourceful.
Oh, thank you.
You've definitely been able to utilize whatever has been placed around you to kind of cultivate whatever your brand or image needed to be at the time and be able to find some sort of success.
Yeah. And then with those, to touch on resources as well, for parties, I love finding like avenues of payment for people. So for example, if a party's like, we don't have money, I'm like, well, yeah, duh, you haven't had the party yet. So you don't have any money. It's going towards the cost of making the party. So, okay, sick. But you will have money at the end of the party. And so why don't we just take like 10% of the bar and that pays the GoGo dancer? And then if that's the case, you don't think all of us GoGo dancers are going to be making sure everybody's taking shots at the bar? Yeah, we are. We're going to be like, everyone, woo, shot. We're going to be talking to every dude. Like, yeah, like, and so that's one of my other schemes. If you need help finding money, there is always money. You just have to figure out how to reallocate it because it doesn't need to 100% go to the club or 100% go to the DJs or, like you always need a photographer or videographer because if you can't record your party, I know everybody has phones right now, but that gets lost in the sauce. So you should always pay for a photographer, videographer.
Yeah, and also when you're recording in the moment, it takes away from what you're trying to do. And if you can have a third party person capture that,
get off your phone.
Then it's candid. It's not that fake candid where you're like, yeah, where the girl sitting at the top of the table with just like a bottle or drink in her hand, kind of waving around. You know how many of those I hate? Sing.
My God. Yeah, don't do that. So, so there should always be a budget for that person. And then, like, I do think, obviously I'm biased, but I do think having GoGo dancers and stuff, like, adds an extra vibe to things because people can't stare at a DJ sweating in, like, a light screen for 6 hours. It's just boring. I'm sorry. It's just, like, we need something else to look at, and then people are like, oh, I'm bored, so they're going to go do more drugs or go drink more or whatever, and then now you're taking people off the dance floor so that they can go fill themselves with more intoxication and stuff. And so I feel like GoGo dancers help kind of relieve that need to consistently be like doing something.
I agree. From my experience from working in the club 5 years, Omni always had GoGo dancers. And I would notice that they kind of like set the energy or the vibe. Like if you're dancing, I would notice a lot of people would look up at the dancer if they were standing still, and then they would immediately start dancing after and kind of like mimicking what she's doing in her energy.
Yeah, when I go dance, I like to do finger guns and see how many people in the crowd I could get to like do them back. Or I'll do the famous Macarena is definitely one of my go-tos, just to add some fun and then just to see if people are paying attention, you know, so...
You must have to have a ton of energy to go dance up there. I think at Omnia they were in 15-minute spurts.
Yeah.
But you're fully going. And I feel like when you're up there, you're feeling the music in a different sense than what the crowd is because it's just you.
Yeah. Well, we only have the 15 or 30-minute set so that we just look as presentable as possible because all of us could definitely dance for like 6 hours straight and just be okay. In fact, I have definitely danced for some parties where just like beginning to end completely sober, just enjoying the music and so yeah, but no, we just like to see other people have fun, I think. And I'm not a professional like dancer at all. I just was like dancing at this anime convention and they were like, hey, you're kind of good. And then I became a dancer. Like,
were you resourceful again?
Yeah, resourceful. Yeah, I actually did like Muay Thai and wrestling growing up. So I thought I was, and I did
in high school.
And I did Muay Thai in middle and high school, and then I did wrestling in high school.
You were a woman wrestler.
I was a woman wrestler,
wow,
and I was in
props.
MCJROTC. So I thought I was gonna be like in the Marine Corps as a journalist or something, or like the next woman president. I have no idea, but that was like my life path. And then when I got kicked out, I like totally 180.
That is complete 180.
A complete 180 to a completely different lifestyle. Yeah, if you saw my life prior, you'd be like, oh, this chick's gonna be like a doctor or something like that. And it's like, no, this girl's gonna travel the world in a completely different way.
Woman wrestler, you don't see that often in high schools.
Yeah, it was terrible because I kept wanting to beat everybody up, and so I was like, this is stupid. I was like, I just want to fight everybody, and I was a terrible varsity 103 wrestler. Absolutely terrible. Garbage.
Why wrestling? Was there something that...
I quit JROTC because we switched COs and I didn't like the new commanding officer. And so I was like, well, I need another PE credit. And I hated pretty much everything except for wrestling. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a wrestler. And I was like, it's kind of like, because my Muay Thai studio, Master Toddy's, closed down when I was 15 or 16 or something like that. They like packed up all their fighters and like went back to Thailand, which is so hardcore. And I was so thinking about just dropping out of school and just like going to Thailand and becoming a Thai fighter in another version of my life somewhere.
In the multiverse. In
the multiverse. There's a Veronica out there saying Swadika.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of those different kind of concepts. I'm a big believer in the multiverse and consciousness. That's kind of the route that I've gone on. And that's being in the festival scene is definitely opened up my spirituality. I always tell people that if there was like 4 pillars to my life, the first pillar would be joining the football team for health reasons. I lost a bunch of weight.
Oh, okay.
You know, I joined Omnia. That was financial reasons. Being a founder was for, I forget what the other reason was. But then the fourth one was Raving. It opened up my spiritual senses, and that would have been like my spiritual pillar. It really made me realize that there can be this, how do I describe it? It's the energy of like what's going on in a music festival and how like people are all on the same wavelength. It's almost like this cult, but it's like a friendly cult.
Yeah, a friendly cult.
Where it brings out a lot of like your emotions and your senses and beliefs that you didn't know were really there until you're in that moment of dancing with people. Yeah,
I definitely, it's hard to believe, but I was definitely like a very angry, fighty kind of person.
I would have never imagined that.
Like, yeah, people meet me now and they're like, you're so pleasant. And then I actually have a best friend, Marissa, who's also a GoGo dancer with me, and she grew up on the east side of Las Vegas like me. And then we both like around the same time became like GoGo dancers and then found spirituality and things. And so, but us like beforehand are just like getting into fights, like breaking cars, like, you know, just completely like different reckless kind of lifestyle. And then like we are now like very zen, like very peaceful, very like, I don't care to argue with you anymore because we like grew up so angry all the time. So yeah, I definitely like found spirituality, I feel like, through raving and festival stuff as well, because like everybody else is spiritual, so it's kind of like hard to not kind of you know, see kind of like what other people are doing, especially because I grew up super crazy religious too. I was Christian, and I used to go to church like 4 or 5 times a week as a child, and I got sponsored to go to a private school when I was in 6th grade. So I went to a Christian private school, and I felt no spirituality there. I felt I was bullied all the time, and people were so incessantly mean to me. And so to find like these like rave culture kids that were just like, you know, chewing super hard on their teeth, but like, I love you, you know, I was like, wow, I was like, I've never felt that in my life. So, so yeah, no, I definitely feel that with the rave scene.
With the spirituality. I think that's why music brings everyone together, because it's ageless, right? You see people that are at Coachella, for example, you could have 3 years old and people that are 70, and people who are in the middle at, you know, a 25-year-old kid who just graduated college. Like, they're all on that same dance floor. They're all experiencing the same song, but they're all interpreting it differently. And I think that's what sparks a lot of conversation between one another, and a lot of empathy and like the wavelength sharing, because it's weird how you interpret it.
And everyone's at like such different time periods in their lifetime too, that, you know, how it's affecting them personally is always different. So that's always interesting to see too, because, you know, someone could be like, I really needed this right now, or someone could be like, you know, at their breaking point of like, I never want to drink again, you know, and so I'm going to go to this rave and I'm going to not drink, and or whatever their thing is.
Yeah, music is one of those only domains where almost every single song that you listen to has like an attached moment to it that makes you think of either a person or a time in your life or some sort of specific experience. There's not many other things in life that have that sort of same like staunch emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, except for I think smells.
Okay.
And so like childhood smells are things. So I read it in or listened to a podcast somewhere where they're like, that's why like smell is so effective for people like who are about to like pass and things like that. They can start to smell things from like their childhood.
Wow, I did not know that.
I would definitely fact check that though, because I definitely make up facts a lot. But I feel like I read it somewhere that like smell, because it's like when we developed, you know, biologically, like over the years, whatever smell is like one of the first things we develop first, and then eyes.
Yeah, because smell was before communication.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I need to get a Jamie on here where I could just have somebody with a TV screen. I'm like, Google that, Jamie.
Google it, the Jamie. It's funny, you have the face on your door, and so I like look. I was like, is that Jamie?
It's Dave Rice. Do you know who that was? He used to be the basketball coach for UNLV Rebels when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And so basically, for those who can't see it, well, you can't even see it through the video camera. I have a giant fat head of Dave Rice in my apartment, and we'll say I borrowed it from the UNLV student section my last basketball game in college. So I was like, I'm taking Dave with me. I put all of my blood, sweat, and tears into this student section and UNLV. Yeah. You're coming with me. So now I've took him with me for the last 5 years.
It's okay. I took, I may or may not have taken our school. We were the Jaguars. So we had like a Jaguar stuffed animal. I definitely took that thing with me because I was senior class vice president.
Did you go to DP?
Yeah.
I remember. They were in our division. I went to SHAP.
Oh, really? I was supposed to go to SHAP. That was like my zone school. And then I was like, Desert Pines, they have the AOC, the Academy of Communications. And so they had like this dude come to us at our middle school and was like, you want to be on the radio? Like, come to this high school. And then we go there and it's like crazy super ghetto, just underpaid teachers and just absolute chaos. But yeah, I was senior class vice president and I was yearbook editor in chief. So I definitely stole that stuffed animal. And I was like, this is mine. All my blood, sweat, and tears in the school. Yeah.
This is your repayment. I'll accept it. Just this once though.
Thanks everyone. And it was crazy. We actually had like a radio booth like at our school, and we could have had like our own radio station like and just used it, but none of us like utilized the program because we always had like an influx of teachers like coming in and out all the time. And so, but that would have been so cool because like I feel like if we had like a really legit audio production program, then all those kids could just go to Icon in LA, and then we would just be like mass producing just like all these dope ass DJs into the world. But maybe that's a little too far advanced. You guys can take that idea because I'm not going to develop that one, but I feel like it was a wasted opportunity for sure, for something that could be super cool because there are colleges like Icon that are, you know, creating legends like Jaws and IO, rest in peace, and
R.
Nightmare.
Yeah, that was a sad tragedy.
He was actually the last show I went to in Vegas before I left to Korea.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great guy.
It's an unfortunate byproduct of the music industry and the nightlife is suicidal tendencies and overdosing and a lot of depression, just because sometimes it's hard to relate to people because you're constantly on the road, or there's like a bunch of things
going to an empty home when you come back is
that's something with comedians they talk about all the time. Is just like how they basically live out of hotel rooms for months at a time, and it becomes very lonely. And sometimes, even though you are making money and performing for all these people, you don't have that friend there with you to, you know, share the moment with.
And then like if you try and tell people about it, they're like, well, this is what you wanted, and there's like, you know, no what's it called, no empathy for people, because you're like, well, you're making it, you know, like this is what you wanted kind of lifestyle. I've had 7 friends kill themselves during quarantine. And one of them is an actual billionaire. And so if he's not even happy in life, you know, like, you know, it doesn't matter what level you get to in life. Like, you know, if you're not taking care of like your personal, you know, castle and
personal well-being, I think it's important to make sure you always have friends around you and a good support group, because that seems to be the big reason why a lot of people commit suicide is like on their notes, they talk about being lonely. And no one really to relate to. Or feeling alone in a crowded room. So you definitely have to have like those people that, you know, just light up. You know, when you see them, you're just like light up. That's why you're so bubbly.
Yes, you know? I
love for all your people.
Hit me up. You know, on the internet, whatever.
I know being a manager also is being a part psychologist as well, because you're managing people. Our mental well-being and personality and emotions are so erratic. It can change literally from an hour, you know, at the beginning of this conversation to later. One word can literally send you into a tailspin.
And trust me with your psychology. No, but I do feel like because I've grown up so chaotically, I have a lot more practice with dealing with emotions. And so I feel like I can, like, my emotions are kind of like boxes, and I can access like each box that I need.
You have it compartmentalized very well.
Yes, for emotions. In particular, especially like being a woman in the industry, like, and, you know, being, you know, Black, white, and Asian. So I put in all these typecast of like, you know, crazy Asian chick, or, you know, crazy mixed girl, whatever. And so yelling and stuff. So you don't want to be like put in that category either. And so like being able to like control your emotions, like I feel like since I was a kid, I've really been able to like just kind of like focus and just be like, is this helping me right now? Like, this is not helping me. Like, or do I want to blow up right now? Like, do I deserve to blow up right now? Like, you know, I'm just gonna do it. I know a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people are just like, you know, which is cool. You know, it's quality sometimes I wish I still had, because a lot of people think I don't care a lot sometimes, and especially in personal relationships, because I don't react first. And it's like, no, I'm more of a simmer, kind of boil type of person, you know.
It's because you went through all those experiences when you're younger, so you're seasoned in that category. You know, I also had a similar upbringing as well. Didn't have a lot, and went through a lot of personal errors and mistakes and failures to learn through it. And a lot of my friends now, they're like, you seem very stoic. And I was like, you should have seen me 4 years ago. It's not like that at all. But I was like, I kind of got it out of the way early. Whereas you see a lot of people in society, they go through these midlife crises when they're 40 because they never had those crazy experiences when they're younger. So it kind of just like melded in their mind and boiled for a long time.
Yeah, that's so funny. I read the Daily Stoic.
Yes.
You're a Daily Stoic. Yeah. Daily Stoic people. Woo. Yeah. My boyfriend has it like out on a counter, and so every day I kind of like flip to it here or there and stuff. And I feel like that also helps, because I grew up reading Bible verses every morning. Before I went to school, I would read a proverb every morning, and then whatever else like I had to read. And so with Proverbs, they're really cool because, like, I mean, they're just life lessons. So out of everything in the Bible, like, Proverbs are, you know, they're just things that you can take with you for the day. And so I kind of like transitioned from just like reading Bible verses to kind of just reading like the Daily Stoic every day, or the Mindfulness Project, or whatever the hell other psychology book it is of the week.
It's important in today's age to approach situations with information first and evaluate and then react, where the majority of society and social media's kind of exacerbated this. The first thing they do is attack with emotion.
Totally.
And it just makes you come off very pompous or even like an imbecile.
Yeah, and unprofessional. Like, why would I want to work with somebody who just like lashes out on in the internet all the time? Like, that's a definite red flag for me, that either you need help or like I don't really want to work with you that much, because if you're just lashing out at things online, then what is it like to work with you? Probably not that great either. So, yeah, it all kind of correlates. Yeah. And people always look online. Like, you might, forget about what you post, like in a moment of anger. You might just this is why I got kicked out, by the way. So in a moment of anger, I was talking shit about my mom on Twitter, and then someone showed it to her. And then she's like, well, if you want to, I'm providing a home for you. And my immigrant mom was like, I'm providing a home for you. And so this is how you want to act like, then you get the fuck out of my house. And so I was like, oh shit, moment of anger that, it's totally avoidable, but necessary for my catalyst of life. But, those moments of anger, like you might forget about it, but it's there forever. So, and I see that online a lot, where people are like, oh, it's so fucking, and instead of like taking that anger and just like, like writing online about it, whatever, it's like, you could get that to yourself. Also with, producers that I see a lot that typically tend to identify as male, they like to write a lot of dumb things about like the industry or women in the industry that they don't think is like that offensive or whatever. They're just like, oh, this is stupid or whatever. And it's like, I see that and it's like, this guy seems insecure, or this guy needs to get off the computer. This guy needs to go take a walk. Like, those are the things I think when I see like those kind of like angry bursts of kind of like Twitter, specifically Twitter, because I adore Twitter. I think it's one of my... I love
Twitter. It's my favorite. Absolute favorite. Yes! Absolute favorite.
Me too. I could get rid of everything and just keep Twitter, which is so annoying because I just hit 10K on Instagram and I don't give a shit because I'm not really a performer anymore. And so now I'm more behind the scenes. So it's actually kind of like, it's kind of like reverse, where like, and if you do work a lot in the industry, you usually actually have less followers because you're moving behind the scenes. And so now that I have all these followers, I'm like, my God.
I love Twitter. I always told people, I'm like, when you see somebody go on the news or when their face pops up in an article or something like that, and they reference social media, they always reference their Twitter account. It's very rarely do they reference someone's Instagram account, because I'm like, it's easy to be superficial on Instagram. That's basically what it is, but it takes some sort of depth to a person to have some sort of success on Twitter, and not even success, just to be able to express yourself without having the like vague importance of what people think about what you're saying, because it's just you. It's an expressive of what's going on in your mind.
Yeah, and then also a really easy way to connect with people. I feel like on Twitter, it's like effortlessly easy for me to just like hit somebody up, and then on Instagram, it gets like lost in the DMs, or it's like suspect or whatever. And honestly, my Instagram is just like pure advertisements of brands that I adore. Most of the brands that I advertise for are actually like my friends. So if you see like the same repetitive brands, it's just people that I really care about and, work really hard and stuff. And so to me, it's like an advertising avenue for sure. And it's always been that way for me, or to advertise parties and things like that. And then Facebook is absolute garbage.
It is.
I just can't wait till it finally
disappears,
because it sucks. Because when I do these consultations, like, I do kind of like, I have definitely forced, like, or not forced, but I definitely have made a bunch of people make Twitters, because I'm just like, I feel like if you could just get rid of everything else and just have your Twitter, and then like your music avenues and just had those two, like, you'd be fine, because people who really give a fuck about you, and Discords, Discords are the new, I feel like every DJ is making a Discord. I actually just made one. Which we will link at the end.
Yeah, we'll link it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you advocate for Twitter, because every person that I've talked with, literally when I was in the fraternity, or even now when people approach me about creating a podcast, the first thing I tell them is to create a Twitter.
Yes.
Like it's the most accessible. People are highly engaging on Twitter. People, there's a lot more relatability, whereas Instagram's more of a popularity contest.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to reach people.
And
I think that's how we met, was actually Twitter.
Yes, we did. And humble brag, I've had my Twitter for 11 years.
Boom, 2009.
Yep.
I'm
an 09er.
Hey. So I think I was June or July 2009.
Yeah, I was like August or September, because my we had our computer teacher, Mr. Lively, I think. He was talking about Twitter, and we were like, that's stupid. And then we all made one, and then like 2 years later, everybody's just posting nudes and stuff like that on Twitter, and it's like, everyone's so stupid.
That's back when you could go to Twitter jail.
You could go to Twitter jail. Yeah. And you could send it to your phone.
Yeah. 40404.
40404. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've definitely like gone through and cleaned up my Twitter, which I highly recommend anybody doing if you've had it as long as we have. And just looking at my my 10 and 11.
Yeah. I doxed myself before I started the podcast.
Yeah.
I had to just to make sure.
Yeah.
I was like, there's probably going to be some inconsiderate things there. Like, it's not racist or anything, but I created Twitter when I was 17. So I was like, there's definitely some ignorant things back there.
Yeah. Everyone, and to me, everyone was a bitch.
Yeah.
Like the milkman, the person working in the store, like everyone. And then now I'm just like boundlessly in love with just everyone I meet. I'm just like, oh my God, like you do that. Like you deliver mail. Cool. Like that's such a natural, like we need you. Like, okay, cool. Or like the guy in the elevator.
That's so funny.
He's like, New York, these are really expensive. I'm like, wow, that's great. You live here, not New York. Like,
welcome to Vegas, man.
Welcome to Vegas, man. Like, cool.
I'm so excited to follow your journey.
Aw,
You're definitely going to be so successful, especially with the personality that you possess and the skills, and your adaptability seems to be like one of your prominent traits.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely feel more confident in this year, which it's crazy because like last year I was going to launch LoFive and I was going to be anonymous. And the big thing that makes my brand, I feel like, is me. And I was going to take me out of the equation because I was like insecure about like, well, what if people don't want to hire me because I'm a woman? Or what if people don't want to hire me because I'm a GoGo dancer? Like, should I hide my Instagram? I'm having like all these like crazy negative like thoughts. And then after COVID, I was like, no, I have such a crazy, awesome, successful journey and, you know, past and present. And so I need to embrace that. And it doesn't matter what people like that think, because I don't want to help people like that. Like, you know, why would I want to help you if you think that it's dumb that I'm a go-go dancer? I don't. Like,
your story's so important to your success. That's how people relate to you. And if you have an even crazier story, then people look up to you even more because they're like, wow, look at how many hurdles she went through and how many times she almost just gave up but didn't and kept pushing. And eventually, what I've learned and from the people I've talked to, if you just keep pushing, you will find success.
Yes, 100%. Yes, you will find it. And it might not be the original success that you wanted, but it will be a success that you needed. So
yeah, don't be afraid to pivot. Before we get out of here, I always ask everybody one parting question. Same question.
Okay.
What does Las Vegas mean to you?
Oh, goodness. Gosh, Vegas means to me the definition of chaotic neutral.
I like that. I've not gotten that answer before. I've not gotten that response.
Yeah. I don't think that Vegas is doing anything to you or you're doing anything to it. It's just a chaotic neutral state of being all the time. So
that is beautifully put.
Thank you.
Where do I direct all of the viewers and listeners to?
So you can always hit me up on Instagram at Sailor V with 3 E's at the end. So at Sailor V EEE. My Instagram, my Gmail is LoFive.management, MGMT at gmail.com. If you want to email me, or I have a solo.to/LoFive management with no period inside of it. We'll type all that stuff, so it's kind of easier.
Yeah, I'll make sure I link all of it. And also you have to follow her on Twitter. She's amazing to follow. Hilarious.
Same, at Sailor V with 3 E's at the end. I'm pretty hilarious. I'm a ranter for sure. Like anything you can tell. Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation. Learned a lot. I'm very fascinated with your story. Like I said, I think you're going to be very successful because of everything that you've gone through.
Yeah, this is my next catalyst to launching my artist consultation business. So I'm really happy that you're here to help me capture it. So thank you.
No problem. I look forward to doing this again next time you're in town or whenever the time comes.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.